Joseph Forte received his doctorate from Columbia University. Dr. Forte has taught art history at Sarah Lawrence College since 1978 and is now chair of that department. He's written articles and exhibition catalogs on the art and architecture of the Italian Renaissance and also on modern architectural theory and practice. Joe traces his roots back to Sicily, his grandparents having arrived in the U.S. in the late 19th century. And he often jokes to friends that he's from the furthest province of Italy, Brooklyn, New York. I'm thrilled that Joe is here today to chat with us about his love of Italy and Italian art and architecture. Thank you so much for being here, Joe, to talk about Italy. Such a delight. So you have a special connection. What resonates about Italy for you?
Well, it was when I was brought up in Brooklyn, right, in a Sicilian family, a Sicilian-American family. I understood that there were certain things different about my experience than the other people who I lived around. Like, for instance, we never ate eggs for breakfast, or people talked at dinner loudly, and things like that, which I found very reassuring. And then my grandfather, who immigrated to the United States, at one point said, you know, this is kind of the way things are there. So when I was 16 years old, I went to Italy for the first time. My father's family was much more kind of artigianale. They used to do little shoemaking, things like that. But my mother's family, my grandfather, Carmelo Fazio, was the first non-American born electrician licensed in New York City. So he was always very committed to education, and that was always very much part of my mother's family. Anyway, it was kind of like a Jewish kid going to Israel. And it was like everything made sense in a way the first time I went when I was a kid, although I didn't speak any Italian or anything at that time.
And where did you go?
Well, I went to the great tourist spots. I was a useless tourist, by the way, at that point. But I went to all the great tourist spots, Rome, and I went to Venice, and I went to Florence. And I spent a good bit of time in Milano. But I just felt very comfortable, and I loved the culture. I loved the art. I loved all of those kinds of things. And then when I went back to college, I had gone to college early, and then I left for a while, and I went back. I thought it was something that I wanted to study, and that's what I wound up studying. Although I wound up studying two kind of different fields. But yes, that was one of them. Italian art and architecture was one of the things I was most interested in.
And so now you're a professor at Sarah Lawrence.
Yeah, somehow they kept me. I didn't give them any money. I read your student reviews. Boy, oh boy. That's $20 goes a long way when you're in college, let me tell you. Yeah, no, I mean, I bring the same passion to the classroom. I love Italy, I love the language. I try to speak it as well as I possibly can. And I try to let my students see that it's a culture, no? You know, it's not just the work of art, but it's a whole way of thinking, and you know, the importance of the evolution of humanism and things of that sort are kind of ingrained in the Northern Italian way of life. Southern Italian way of life is more complicated, but the Northern Italian way of life, and I try to make that a very clear theme. Not the campanalismo thing like, oh, you know, Florentines are great, blah, 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 but rather there's a culture here, and this is a culture which is complex, and trying to be modern, too.
And you're writing about and researching Bergamo right now.
Yes, I am. At the present moment, I'm writing about Bergamo because I'm writing about the development of Renaissance Bergamo as a kind of line of demarcation between Milano and Venezia, between Milan and Venice, and how the Venetians took Bergamo and tried to develop not only a kind of military position there, but also an economic one. So they developed a whole, you know, kind of section, you know, quartieri, nascimenti, that was made up of palaces that were supposed to be by the merchants, and the merchants were like a bulwark against Milanese influence. So it's an interesting study in urban planning in the Renaissance. This what's called ad hoc planning, where they basically say, like, well, we better do something on the site quickly. In Florence, one of the unique aspects of Florentine urban development is the fact that the Florentines were able to exile their nobles. They actually, in the 13th century, passed a law which made it impossible for the nobles to own land within the old Roman city. And the reason why they did that is because they were interested in keeping the nobles at bay.
So in Rome or Florence?
In Florence.
So in Florence
in Florence they actually passed, under the Commune, they passed a law that within the old Roman city, right, which is the downtown, it goes from just the edge of the Duomo, Piazza del Duomo, all the way down to the river. They actually passed a law which made it impossible for nobles to buy downtown property. So the merchants kind of established that as their quarter, and it became a kind of center for the whole city's development at that point.
For us just normal people that are coming to visit Florence, what can you tell us about some of the buildings that you love?
What I like, first of all, the bridges. I like the bridges.
Ponte Vecchio.
Ponte Vecchio. All right, so tell me, do you know what the original function of Ponte Vecchio was? You would know this. Yes, butchers. Absolutely, it's butchers. So typically you would think, right, that you would put butchers on a bridge because you wouldn't want the offal from all the cutting up of the animals to be brought into the city. So they would dump it into the river, into the Arno. And it was really the Medici that changed that. And it was really a very significant change, because when the Medici changed that, it set off a kind of whole fluorescence of the idea of locating all of the goldsmiths and all of the gold resources in a city within a particular local, very local area. And so the creation of Ponte Vecchio as a place where gold would be kind of protected and that the gold would be powerful actually was picked up in Paris right afterwards, because the Medici princesses went to Paris, right? I mean, they married.
So the French copied the Italians
French copied the Italians again, one more time.
I'll look forward to seeing you next summer in Florence.
I hope so.
And thank you so much for chatting with us a little bit about Italy.
You know, it's great to do this.
Thank
Anything
you,
I can say that would help the cause.
Grazie mille.